Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by Nate Weitzer. He's on the East Coast as always, and we are looking at play-up props here on a Thursday as we round out this NBA season very soon. 5 games to choose from here on the slate, so plenty of value. Some guys in and out of the lineup, but I think that always helps with these play-up props, being able to see how dudes perform with and without certain guys that may not get as many minutes tonight. So definitely make sure you're staying on top of that. Also want you to head to thelines.com, use that prop finder tool under the NBA tab. It's a very nice chart right there in front of you that displays all of the odds that are available to you and the lines here that might be changing from these books across this NBA season. Nate, let's go ahead and get right into your first NBA best bet. A guy I know we're both targeting here in his game against the Jazz, the Jalen Green pick here.
Yeah, same page on Jalen Green, where we've been fading him over the tough stretch of the last 5-6 games, but now you got to go back to him. And now it's down to 24.5 points, down a couple points from the last time we took the under, and only 2.5 threes, which I think I like even more, although it's juiced up. Minus 115 at FanDuel is where you can find it the best here. But I mean, this is the beautiful thing about betting. Like the Rockets open at -3, and I'm like texting you right away, like you need to hit that. And I know I'm going to put it in the show tomorrow. And by the time I wake up, it's -10 because that is a horribly incorrect line against a Jazz team that's lost 13 straight, 7 straight at home, is now sitting all of their good players or all of their experienced players. And they're going to have Keontae George and Talen Horton-Tucker out there soaking up the usage. Keontae George, last time against the Rockets, had a 152 defensive rating. He is 133 in his last 5. He was out there as the Rockets hit, 27 three-pointers as a team. And Jalen had 41 with 7 three-pointers, barely missed a shot. That was during his red-hot streak. He started cold in Utah in the immediate rematch, but then goes for 30 in the second half, finishes 4-11 from 3, finishes with a 37.5% usage rate, which is just astronomical. The last 6 matchups have been tough. Like I'm saying, Dallas twice, Minnesota, Warriors, Heat, Magic. Still had the 27% usage, still taking over 8 threes per game, just only shooting 22%. But this is a Utah team that, as we know, bottom 5 in absolutely everything. It continues to drop as they continue to rule more and more guys out. And they are allowing, even on the entire season, the second highest percentage of points off threes when they're at home. They were a high-scoring team at home. Now they're just a high-scoring defense in terms of just allowing a ton, and the second most threes specifically to shooting guards. So Jalen, who's had 2 incredible games against them already in this hot stretch, I think he has one more here to put a bow on a nice close to the season.
Yep, fully agree. I'm actually targeting the assists in this one. I like the points as well. I mean, even the points and assists, I don't think you need to put them together, but I think both are good bets, to be honest. I get the points as well. Like I'm in full support of that. You're not going to hear me say anything bad about that. But I think the best part about the Jalen Green stuff is just that, he loves to pick on these teams. You look at who he's played and when he's gone under. Yeah, it's good defense versus bad defense. And this Houston team had as much of a sort of both ends of the spectrum in terms of the strength of schedule that they played right back to back, 7 really easy games and then 5 to 7 just brutal games, right? Which has knocked them out of the playoff picture as well. And Jalen Green has just been really a dude who we all think he's good. We just don't know how good, to be honest, even after this surge, because he's just beating up on bad teams. And I expect him to do that again here against Utah, to the way you kind of phrase it, put a bow on it. So my first bet here is one that is heavily correlated to one that I'm not talking about, but I'll mention the one I'm not playing first, which is potentially Zion unders. And I do like CJ over. So the bet here is CJ McCollum over 28.5 points and assists combined. I also liked the 4.5 assists for him, but I also just can't get away from him shooting the ball 22 times and not take points with CJ McCollum right now. So the 2 bets that I would make here, and definitely the CJ one, is a little bit correlated. Like the Kings are a good defense down low, and they funnel everything away from the basket. They collapse essentially, similar to sort of like an Orlando Magic defense, right? Where they're not really giving you the ball handler much of anything, or just basically whoever has the ball in their hands, it's like, get him, right? That's the Mike Brown defense, is like, get him, pressure them. Let's try to force some turnovers. We now have two incredible defensive wings getting a lot of minutes for us, and Davion Mitchell and Keon Ellis. But the problem is even with those dudes in over the last like 10 to 15 games, where CJ wants to score is still where they're most vulnerable. And what he wants to do is shoot above the break threes, which he's now up to about 9 a game without Brandon Ingram in there, or get into the lane, into the non-restricted area part of the paint and score from there, which is the other part of the floor that this Kings team is most vulnerable. It's when you go all the way to the rim that you have a little bit more trouble getting your shot off. I will say it's because they get foul. So like I stayed away from the Zion bet because I was like, if he gets 10 free throws, which is possible against this team, then that's a little bit scarier for him to just get 7 free points and for me to take an under, even though I think his points prop is a bit high in a game that won't have as many points. I talked about the under in that one in best bets. And I understand the only contradiction to my point here about CJ going over is that Keon Ellis and Davion Mitchell are really good defenders, and now they're not out there. And I understand that. But he's also playing in that pick and roll spot. He's also getting a ton of spot ups, which is where the Kings are very vulnerable as well, giving up the 4th most points per game to spot up shooters. CJ's actually in the spot up more than Trey Murphy, who you would think of as like their spot up dude who's taking 9 to 10 threes a game without Brandon Ingram, essentially. And I get that. And I still think he's probably a good bet at about 15.5 points, but I can't take overs for everybody. And CJ is just in a position now where he's come close to going over this number with Brandon Ingram at times against the Kings. But there just hasn't been enough shots to go around. Now we're talking about 22 shots a game for CJ. The volume is just purely there. I got to feel pretty good about that. Everything that I was saying in terms of where he wants to score is going to be weakest for where this Kings team is playing defense. And so, yeah, I think between the spot up, the floater game for CJ, it's just gonna be very tailor made. Like I'm going to be out here at the top of the key. I'm either going to pull this 3 off the screen, or I'm going to take a step in and pull from the mid range, or I'm going to take another step in and hit my floater. It's one of those 3 options for him consistently. And I do think the assist will be there a little bit more off of that. Although the Kings have been a very good team at limiting assists as of late, they also do, like I said, play really high ball pressure. So I think adding the assist in the event that he gets like 6 to 7 to help us out with the points would be pretty nice. But I really like the points alone if you want to take them, or the assists alone. I just put them together because I liked them both.
Yeah, and you mentioned BI. He's been the one killing the Kings. He's a big reason why Nola's won 4 straight against them. Maybe why you're reluctant to tail me on the Pelicans money line here. But I mean, with him out, you do know that CJ is going to get more usage. I mean, BI, we're talking 29% usage his last 6 against the Kings, shooting 53 and 54% from deep against this team. And then he did let up in the last meeting, and CJ goes for 30 against this Kings team, which, yeah, clearly does not have, he's had a ton of success against them throughout his career. Even with these young bucks in on defense, I think he continues to produce with the added volume. So, I mean, I'm sticking with Rockets props here because I can't take the -10 anymore, but I really want the Rockets. I want some of their player props. I'll take Amen Thompson over 1.5 steals at +125. Again, FanDuel giving you good odds here. I mean, don't hate taking like his rebounds and assists or the points even too. I mean, last time he goes 18, 14, 5, and then he has 2 steals in 40 minutes against the Jazz. His last 6, he's playing a ton of minutes. He has 1.7 steals per game. He was ejected in 8 minutes after against Dallas. So that you throw that one out. He has at least 2 steals in 4 or 5. Otherwise, the Warriors being the exception because they just sunned the Rockets and knocked them right out of this playoff race as kind of predicted, said it was a scenario. But now the Jazz are the ones who are going to get sunned because, like I said, Keontae George in over his head, playing point guard with no help around him, really. It's him and Talen Horton-Tucker, who combined for 9 turnovers in their first game since Sexton was shut down. And Sexton was just carrying this offense. Now Utah has absolutely nothing going here. They had 12 turnovers against Denver, and 14 turnovers, 12 of them resulted in steals. So 12 live ball turnovers. And that was on the season. They have the 4th highest steal rate for opponents. They're allowing 9.5 steals per game during this 13-game skid. So if you want to find like a steals artist, a guy who's going to be hunting for those, you look no further than Amen Thompson. I mean, this is not a prop we usually take because they're a little bit erratic, but I mean, this is what Amen is out there to do, right? And it's what he's going to be comfortable doing because he's playing against the guys that were basically the caliber of guys he was playing in the development league. Like, these are developmental players for the Jazz. They're going to make mistakes. It's going to be a bit of an up and down game here, and I think he'll come up with at least 2 steals.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm using very similar logic with my final bet, and I do think this is a good find. I know we haven't been exactly like the Steel to Steel podcast here in any way, shape, or form, but I think this is a good look for you. And it's the similar logic that I'm using for my final player prop here, which is not up yet, but it's Brandon Pajemski over points, rebounds, and assists. I don't believe we're going to see Clay playing in this game, and that doesn't necessarily mean you're just going to insert. Brandon Pajemski into the starting lineup, but he has played in this. He has been the dude that they sort of get in there so they can keep Chris Paul on the bench a little bit more. We'll see though, because Trace Jackson Davis is also getting more minutes, and they have liked Chris Paul in the starting lineup a couple times because of how well he and TJD play together. All of that said, Pajemski, even if he doesn't start, I expect to be playing 30 to 33 minutes in this game. The logic that is similar to what you were just saying about Ahmed Thompson is Brandon Pajemski's also just playing now against dudes against this Portland team that is going to be the equivalent of what he would be playing in the G League, right? Which he's done a couple times this season before they just couldn't keep him away from the NBA squad. So he's had a PRA prop of about 15.5 is about where it's maxed. There's been a couple games where nobody has been playing for this, Steph was out, for instance. So he had like a 21.5 PRA prop against the Jazz recently. And maybe it'll come out. I would play this up to about 17.5 for B-Pod right here. If we get 15.5, jump all over it though. So the thought, they're probably going to wait for Clay to officially be ruled out. So you might even have to wait like after the first game starts to really find the Brandon Pajemski prop start to come out. It might be pretty later today. But at the same time, you know, you're ready for it. I would hit it. I don't expect Clay to play. Late ad. Dude got added to the injury report at like nighttime. Like it was like, what did he do? Like go to the fridge for a late night snack, and he got hurt on the way to the refrigerator. How did he get hurt between like 8 p.m. and 11 p.m.? But so it just kind of indicates to me like they're ready to sit him. You see this 13.5, 14.5 point spread for this Dubs team. And B-Pod, if you look at his numbers in games where they win by 15 points, he is the adult in the room at the end of the games. I mean, he's the dude who is somewhat blowout proof because he's kind of like Derek White in that sense. Like the only comparison I'm using here is the premise that even if the game is out of control, you still want one dude in there who you trust to control the tempo and make sure that you maintain a double-digit lead or what have you. And I do think that, I was looking at the Dubs -5 or 6.5 in the first half, and then the spread ballooned, and now it's 8 points, 8.5 in the first half. But I think there's a correlation here to the first half just being something that the Dubs try to put this game away, and then you get B-Pod coming in and playing a lot more and getting a lot of those filler stats as well, which is why I like to add the rebounds and assists. And that's held true when he's played against Portland this season. He's gotten in the last two against them. He's gotten 33 and 32 minutes, averaging about 20, 21 PRA in that time frame, 23 PRA in that time frame. So I think he's pretty good to get over a 16 or 17 PRA line here if that's what comes out. If it comes out at like 21.5, all right, we're shot, and the books were onto it as well. Hopefully they aren't watching this video. But more importantly, like if it does come out under that number, then I think it's a really solid over here as he's going up against, Scoot and company, essentially. Let's put it that way. Those are the guys defending him.
Yeah, it might be, though, because, I mean, I'm looking at his prop line game log. It was 21.5 against Utah in a non-competitive game, but he cruised over it with 29 PRA. Yeah. So I don't think you rule it out, just even if it is around 20, because that's baked into the idea that the Warriors are going to be sitting veterans. I mean, he's gone over in 3 straight. He would have gone over 21 against Dallas as well in a back-to-back situation, right, where the Warriors are sitting veterans. So it really just is an opportunity thing. I don't know if you even need the points in here with B-Pod. I think, he's just like a volume guy in terms of rebounds and assists. Yeah. We'll see where the line comes up, but I think it's a good look ahead. And also Trace Jackson Davis. You got to think about him as well if Draymond's going to play limited minutes.
I think Draymond does play limited minutes. I know he's questionable. There's zero reason for him to play a lot in this game. I was thinking about an under for dominating until I was like, I don't know who's going to be guarding him at this point. And he's playing 35 minutes, taking 22 shots. I don't know if I got an under for Ayton in me here. But the only other thing I would say too about B-Pod to the point you were making there is I kind of like the Derek White comparison at this point. Like I'm starting to think about it. I'm like really, really good undersized rebounding guard who makes the right play in assists and can make an open shot. D White has become a really good shooter, but what a ceiling that would be if B-Pod becomes as good as Derek White, who's one of my favorite players. I think both of us. So that is all the time we have for you in the Derek White praise episode of the Coast to Coast podcast. Definitely want to make sure to subscribe to that page and check out the best bets that we also have up each and every weekday alongside these player props. Until we see you next, happy betting.